Welcome to the Creating Creatives podcast, now presenting by Mommy and Daddy.
Hi there, welcome to the Creating Creatives podcast. My name is Roy, and this is Shelly. And for those of you who know us, you're going to notice something weird. My name is Roy Sampson, and Shelly is Shelly
Lloyd Sampson.
So what's the history behind that? Why is there a Lloyd hyphenation?
So it's always been a tradition in my family for the women to keep the Lloyd part of the name, which goes back to generations and generations, where my great-great-grandmother, someone like that, their last name was Lloyd. And
Yes.
then they married somebody with their last name. And then through the generations, the Lloyd has always been kept in the female's name. And the last name of the man they married gets added to the end.
It's hyphenated. So my father-in-law is Peter Lloyd Peter James. So
Yes.
even I get confused.
Yes.
So he's Peter James, and Shelly was Shelly Lloyd James, and
James.
now that she's married to me, she's Shelly Lloyd Sampson. So
Yes.
the males actually get married into the female clan, which is pretty awesome. I think it's really cool because then you don't lose either heritage.
Yeah, and my brothers are Lloyd James, and they'll always be Lloyd James.
Yes,
And
it's just
then-
very, very confusing when I go into schools and they're
Yes.
like, "Hello, Mr. Lloyd
James,
Sampson."
Mr. Lloyd Sampson.
And yeah. So first and foremost, for those of you who have that question, there it is. And for those of you who don't know us, you're like, who the heck are these two people? Shelly started creating creative. She was in the film industry, started out as an amazing artist, and she realized that, oh my gosh, I am not seeing my family at all. One of the last movies that she worked on, I think the last 40 days we did not see you at all. Because you were waking up and leaving before we woke up, and we had 2 kids at the time, and then you were getting home after we went to bed, and the last week you were on that film, you were actually staying at the studio and staying at a hotel for a whole week.
Yeah, I'd come home and I'd see their little shoes on the floor, and I'd just be sad that I missed whatever action those shoes got to see during the day. It was tough.
I made her videos though.
I know. I got a lot of videos. It was good.
A lot of videos, and that's where this started coming into play, because Shelly started creating creative so that she could foster creativity within herself and within our children, because that was the whole point of getting into the film industry.
Yeah.
And now we're trying to put it together. I love making videos. I've always wanted to make movies since I was a little kid. I used to watch Goonies is my favorite movie. I remember watching it 4 times in one day.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say you watch it way more than 4 times in one day. Yeah.
Yes, I love analyzing script, story, just everything about it. I think visual effects is one of the last things that passes through my mind. It's all about the storytelling. And so we're trying to put it together here with our podcast. So instead of just seeing the arts and the crafts and some of the silly and crazy things that we try with our children on social media, you'll get a little bit of a peek into what we're thinking, some of the things that we tried that didn't work, because it might work for your kids.
Yeah.
Yep. Because in the final analysis of everything, it's all about the things that you're willing to try, and that is what creativity is.
Yeah.
It's just trying things and seeing what works, and if it doesn't work, sometimes you can fix it.
Yeah. Well, it started out with creating creatives when I was off of one of my shows. I can't remember which one it was, but and I was picking the kids up, and they were in daycare, and I would bring them back home, and I realized after working on a movie, I would be sucked dry of creativity. Yep. I wanted to do these projects that my mom and dad did with me, and we had so many fun adventures as a kid, and I'm like, finally, my kids are old enough that I can do adventures with them, and I was just like wanting to sit on the couch and watch 24 all day. I think that's when I got into 24. Whew. And I had no creativity, I had no desire, I had no motivation. And then one day I picked the kids up and we sat outside. It was a beautiful day, and we just started, I can't remember, it was like painting or something. I got something out, or I think I got some project out that I was like, we're going to do this. And of course, when you're like, we're going to do this with kids, it never works out that way. They're like, oh yeah, we're going to do this. And so what I realized from that is I was like, wow, that's way more creative than what I was going to do. And so I learned creativity from them. So the whole creating creatives is actually our children making me more creative. Don't tell them. So that's kind of where that started.
Yeah, and there's this beautiful cycle that we discover that they actually make us better as parents. So the more things we try with them, the more feedback that we get from them. And here's an example. I know for me, there was one thing that I was trying to get, and I read this article, and it says that the number one word that children hear is the word no. And so I challenged myself not to say no to the kids. And it launched into this huge exercise that we were doing that ended up being a good money exercise, in the sense that we would go to the grocery store and Trystan would say, hey, Daddy, can I have candy? And instead of saying no, I started using it as, well, yes, you can have candy, but then it made me think about all the things that it would take for him to get that candy, such as, just, Daddy, can I have that candy? And I would say, no. Oh, yes, did you bring your money?
Yeah.
And then he said, no. I was like, well, next time bring your money, then we can have it. Or if we're at home, he says, Daddy, can I have that candy? He says, have you had your dinner? Oh, yes, but you have to make sure you've had your dinner. But it's essentially programming yourself to say yes instead of no, and then telling them all the things that they need to be able to get whatever it is. And one of the things that I found out was it made Trystan this master negotiator ever since he was a child. Like, he would never take the first offer, ever.
Yeah.
May I have dessert? Yes. 3 cookies. No, 1. 2. He's just amazing. And all of them are amazing like that because he raised his siblings.
Yeah. They're very good negotiators, still to this day.
So what is one thing that you've tried with them?
For
anything creative.
Anything creative. Well, one thing I love to do with them is I will get maybe like 3 materials, and it might be, this was one that was like amazing. It was just Play-Doh and bottle caps, and I had no idea what they would do with them. Oh, I think it was 3. So Play-Doh, bottle caps, and pipe cleaners. And no, pipe cleaners weren't even there. When we first started, it was Play-Doh's, bottle caps. I was like, let's make some. I had no idea what they would make, but I was like, these will go well together, play with them.
You're like, make something.
Let's make something. I had no idea. All of a sudden, they started making these cakes. And I'm talking like caps, like for milk caps and
jar caps and stuff. Bottle caps.
And that's when I started.
Lids.
Lids. I started collecting them. I saw it on Instagram or Facebook. A lot of people were collecting them, and they were doing lots of like count the number, just kind of educational activities with the kids. So I was like, I'll collect some of these too. And then, of course, I wanted to do more artsy stuff with them. And they started making these amazing cakes where they would stack the bottle caps would be the layers, and then the Play-Doh would be the frosting. And then they went and they got pipe cleaners, and they got the pipe cleaners, and then they started putting pipe cleaners in as candles. And ever since, it's been kind of one of our go-to when the kids are bored and they're just like, I give them like, here's some bottle caps and Play-Doh, and they're like, we're gonna make cakes, and they just go to town making cakes, and it's inspired a lot of other cake makers now. So I love to give them projects where I just give them the materials. It's very open, and then kind of see where they go with it. Yes,
and so a lot of the crafts that you will see on creatingcreatives.com actually started out like that, where here are a bunch of materials, or even 1 or 2 materials, the kids do something with it, and then Shelly says, voila! And one of the most amazing things, I know, not just for us, but for other people out there, we see things that inspire us, and of course we want to try it, we want to do it, and you just breathe life into the community that you have. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to do this podcast, is one, so you can get a behind-the-scenes look at what we were thinking, what Shelly was thinking when we were going into the crafts. We're also going to see if we can get into what the kids are thinking. We've been interviewing them quite a bit. And so you get to see what's behind the scenes. And so you don't just get inspired by the final product, but you get inspired by the thought process that went into it. So the things that didn't work for us might work for you, and hopefully you can inspire other people in your community as well.
Yeah, and really just spend time with your kids, because I know for me, I am a very creative person, but what I thrived in the film industry is I'm also very left-brained, very organized, very OCD with checking things and lists and all of that stuff. And so I just want to get the house done, and I want to get dinner going, and I want to make sure things are clean and organized, and
she
all
keeps
of this
me on
stuff.
track.
And but
which is weird because I'm the one with the engineering background that
you
is
should be
in the
like
technical
messy
mindset,
artist.
and you're the one that keeps me on this checklist logical track when we go on vacation.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, what are we doing?
But it's hard.
It's a beautiful dynamic.
Yeah, it's hard because I wanna play, but I can't play unless everything's clean, because I'm weird like that. And so forcing myself to spend time with them, and every time I do it, every time I sit down and I spend time with them, I'm like, why didn't I just sit down and spend time with them? Like, it's so worth it every
feel
time.
so guilty afterwards
Yeah,
when you don't.
and they're just like, Mommy, will you play with me? I'm like, I'm just making dinner. I'm just, it's the evil word. But, yeah, so forcing myself to sit down and just taking the action. And it's funny because this is something you could try. This is something that worked for me. We'll see if it works for you. I'd love to know. I started doing this thing where the kids would say, Mommy, can you do this with me? And it was the same thing. Instead of saying no, I'd say yes. But I would tell them, I was like, okay, but just for a minute or 30 seconds. I think I even had to get down to 30 seconds because I'm so weird. But in my head, 30 seconds was like, you can spare 30 seconds to sit with them. And then it would be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It would just expand, and we would spend this time together. And then they would act so much better. They would listen to me because we had spent that quality time together playing. And they got to know me, and I got to know them, and they trusted me.
And you were already engaged with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like when we don't spend time with the kids, I know when I don't spend time with the kids, I have to work so hard to get them engaged when I do want to engage with them or play with them. And by then, I'd already lost them. They're already lost in Roblox.
Yeah.
And whatever
iPad
land, they already get lost, and so it's so much harder to get them engaged. Whereas if I wanted to get them out of my hair and I'm cooking breakfast, if I get them to work with me in cooking that breakfast, either putting the toast in or scrambling the eggs or setting the table, they're already engaged. So by the time I have to pull them in to eat breakfast, I don't have to fight with an iPad, or I don't have to fight with whatever it is that I probably would have made them do just to get them out of my hair.
Yeah. And they want to help.
They want to help. Oh my gosh.
They want to help so much, and when you let them, and that's the other thing, I'm always surprised what they can do. And when you think about those little things, you could sweep the floor, you could do this, you could do that. Yeah. And it's so great because then all of a sudden you get help too. So it's like you're getting help and you're engaging in your kids.
And they're out of your hair.
And they're out of your hair and they trust you. I think you develop, the more time you spend with them, the more trust you gain from them because they know you're not going to lie to them and say, I'll do it later, and then later never comes.
Yeah,
and
after a while, you start trusting them as well. I remember when you and I were sleeping, we didn't intend to sleep in, we were just exhausted. This was when Trystan was 3, Zoe was 2. We were at the old house, and I just remember waking up and hearing noises coming from the kitchen. And when I walked over there, Trystan was putting toast in the toaster, and he was making breakfast for Zoe and himself. And by then, he could get his step stool, put it up against, open the fridge, put it up against the fridge, grab whatever he needed, including the bread. He knew how to put the bread in the toaster and then grab them out with tongs. And that was at 3 years old. And we were both like, yes, we can sleep in. They can make breakfast themselves. Now we have to wake up because we know they're going to get into everything else. They're going to eat everything because they're so independent.
Yeah.
But
I think he toasted like a whole loaf or
he toasted a whole
like that.
loaf one morning.
Bread. We had toast for breakfast and lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is why we are putting this podcast together. So tune in. We haven't had anything planned for this one, but I know we have the next couple episodes we already have planned with some footage of the kids and basically the fruits of the labor of some of the ideas that we put together. And hope to see you next time. Welcome to creatingcreatives.com, the podcast.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.